Hey everybody, welcome back to the Align Your Health podcast. This is one of my absolute favorite topics to talk about. I feel like I'm a little bit of a glutton for punishment. I like being a chiropractor. You have to be a little thick-skinned. Yes. You got to be tough because for decades, chiropractic has been kind of fringe healthcare, or it's falls like people don't know where to put it. Is it naturopathic? Is it holistic? Is it alternative? Those are some of the things that we want to talk about, but these are some of my favorite things that we've captured that people will come in, or assumptions that they've made about chiropractic. And we're just going to go through some of them and answer them because they're just so cool.
I was actually just having this conversation yesterday, and I was actually talking about it with my mom, and we were talking about some, just the field of chiropractic in general, how, and listen, it's changed, the landscape has changed a little bit in the last few years, but when we were in practice, you've been in practice for 18 years now?
I think 19. I think 19? Going on 19.
One adds every year, so I gotta keep adding one
to
every year. But really, when you started out 19 years ago, patients would come in. There would be folks that would come in and they would say stuff like, "I don't believe in chiropractic," or "I don't know what this is," or this is voodoo, or you're not a real doctor, or things like that. Like, imagine on a daily basis having multiple people come into you at your work while you're doing your job, and they say your job's not real, like what you're doing is not real, this isn't anything, and you have to develop the language and the just ability to articulate to those people, hey, actually, here's what the science is behind it, and here's what this is. And I do realize that there was a multi-million-dollar campaign about this profession to slander it, but here's the actual truth about it, and here's how it can change your life too. And so that...
And what Ashley's referring to is, and this is what, when somebody says, like, oh, you guys are quacks, I love that one. Like, because I just think of a duck getting dressed for, work as a chiropractor. It's just a funny picture. Yeah. You guys are quacks. What they don't know is that term, they're actually using a term that was created and served to them, and they're actually the one who has manipulated that. That term was created to try to slander chiropractic, and then it was fed to the general public, and it was done so through, believe it or not, if you guys remember Dear Abby and Ann Landers, that's who they used. And these two, what would those people be called? They're giving their opinion of stories in the newspapers, right, editorials, or whatever.
And they would probably, if you think about it now,
relationship
in our context,
advice.
they were like old school influencers.
Yeah, they were. It would be like giving it to influencers right now and TikTok or whatever.
And that never happens. Nobody ever feeds anything to influencers. They never feed lines to influencers to say, hey, here's what you need to message.
Well, the Wilk's trial proved that they did back then, and the Wilk's trial was a U.S. Supreme Court trial that showed that chiropractors, there was an entire campaign. Guess who was running the campaign? This is crazy. The head of the American Medical Association, and they were trying to defame and destroy, and that was literally the lawsuit, destroy the practice of chiropractic. And so they were saying things like, oh, it's unscientific or whatever. And what's crazy is when patients come in our door, there are some assumptions that some of them have, and they're not even their own now. And this is another thing, is like when you're believing something because you've been like told to believe it, that it's from their dad and it's from their mom and it's from their grandpa or whatever, like it's gotten passed down. Well, I had the opposite. Like my grandfather actually wanted to be a chiropractor and didn't think it was feasible or he could afford it or afford to take the time away from his family. My dad told me he wanted to become a chiropractor. Same thing. There wasn't any federal student loans at the time, but they had both been influenced by chiropractors in their health in such a way that they thought this is really cool. And then lo and behold, my brother and I both become chiropractors, and hopefully some of our kids become chiropractors, and the legacy keeps going on. So we have a very different legacy in our family. So when somebody says to me, chiropractors aren't real doctors, that's number one on the list, okay? We don't usually get this from patients. Extremely rare. We get this from some guy behind his computer on the internet whose face will never be shown and name will never be attached to it. And it's usually on a Facebook comment of a video that I do talking about, and sometimes it's not even chiropractic. Sometimes we're talking about how to naturally lower blood pressure. Yeah. Or we're talking about why you should be eating certain foods only organically, and there are certain foods that you can eat on inorganically because they're safer. And then some guy's like, you're not a real doctor. And it's like, what does that have to do with anything we're talking about? So just the irony of that right away is hilarious. But
Right.
I went to school and I got my doctorate the same way that somebody who becomes a, JD has their doctorate in judicial practices, the same way that a PhD would have their doctorate in philosophy, the same way that a veterinarian would have their doctorate in taking care of animals. I have a doctorate in taking care of spines and nervous systems, and it's called a doctorate in chiropractic. And I love it, and I wouldn't give it up for anything, and it's awesome. So yeah, I have a doctorate degree. I'm allowed to call myself doctor, and but I would never claim to be, if what they're saying is you're not a medical doctor. No, I'm not. And, shout out to the good medical doctors out there. There's a lot of great ones. But I really don't care to associate with a practice that is, in my personal belief, and again, this isn't against the doctors, I think it's relatively antiquated. Large scale. I'm not talking about emergency, and I'm not talking about like invasive surgery. Surgeons, emergency room, like that's very, very, very important. But outside of that, a lot of the stuff when it comes to just general health and when it comes to, I think, pediatrics and I think most internal medicine, I think most of it, and I'm not saying that we don't need them. I think that their current structure, their current models, and how they educate and treat patients is not only antiquated, it's broken. And I still think we need those intelligent people. I think we need them doing the opposite of, like, pediatricians shouldn't be giving shots and antibiotics. They should be educating patients on how to help their kids not to fall down the trap of sugar, eat well, how often they should be exercising, keeping track of their fitness, keeping track of their nutrition. And I think, like, doctors of internal medicine should be helping their patients change their diets, get off of metformin, get off of high blood pressure medication through fixing lifestyle. I think if they flipped it and became a little bit more cause focused, then it would be a very valuable profession. But if you're just talking about writing prescription slips and handing them to people, then no, I would never want to be a medical doctor.
Right, and there's a lot of folks, a lot of doctors inside of the profession that feel that way. A lot of them. Yeah. And then there's also...
a lot of them feel like they got into the profession to help people and that now they're just handcuffed to the pharmaceutical companies.
Right. And then there's also a lot of people just in general that aren't, inside the medical practice world that also feel that way. So it's not that's not like a revelatory position.
Yeah.
That, like, we're not the only people on planet Earth who have that position, right? There's a lot of people that feel that way.
Yeah. And I think it used to be different.
It used to be different.
People were like, you're not a real doctor. I'm like, it's like a little bit like Pinocchio, like, you're not a real boy. But I got no strings to hold me down in practice. They do. I mean, in reality, the only thing that I get frustrated about is that insurance should cover chiropractic significantly more than it does, because the studies have shown that it reduces overall medical expenditure dramatically. So I'm like, that doesn't make sense. If the insurance companies wanted to reduce the expenditures that they're trying to cover, shouldn't they cover more chiropractic? Well, come to find out, it's a lot because chiropractors can't agree on how much they should cover, and there's infighting in the profession. And so I don't know. It's a funny thing. Doctoring and does anybody ever say that to a veterinarian? Like, oh, you're not a real doctor. And he's like, yeah, I didn't want to work with humans. Or like, if a guy only takes care of your foot and he's a podiatrist, is he like not a real doctor because he's only taking care of a foot? Or do you just have to say, I'm a foot doctor? I don't take care of the whole person. I'm just a foot doctor. But I guess that brings us to what is a chiropractor, and what a chiropractor is it somebody who's been trained and specializes in the spine and the nervous system. The nervous system being the most important system in the body, the master control system, and knowing that there's not really a way to medically treat the nervous system outside of drugs, which can be very dangerous. Surgery, they don't actually surgically usually mess with the nervous system. They're usually messing with the spine. So as chiropractors, we also are addressing the spine, but we're doing it through an approach where we're trying to restore and correct the proper movement and function, because what we know is that when vertebrae are out of alignment, when the bones of the spine are out of alignment or they're not moving well, they create stress on those nerves. That stress leads to damage. That damage leads to dysfunction. And ultimately, that dysfunction causes you to lose your health in some way, shape, or form, because every nerve goes to a different organ or a different tissue, different muscles, different structures in your body. So if you're not getting proper nerve flow, you're not getting proper function. And if you're not getting proper function, you're building more dis-ease and less health over time. And so a chiropractor's job is to find that, locate it, and work on correcting it, and then get you back to as good as possible so that you can keep it healthy for the rest of your life.
I mean, that's the summation.
And if people knew what that was, everyone would want it.
Right.
The problem is that message isn't the message that gets out all the time. It's, and I just saw it, you're driving by and you see another chiropractic office and they're like, got neck pain? Turn here. And it's like, no, bro, it's not about neck pain. We're selling the wrong thing, and we really need to teach people about the innate, amazing healing capacity of their bodies, and that when you're under regular chiropractic care, and you get corrective chiropractic care initially, and then in the future you're under regular protective care, that health is the natural state, and that you don't walk around being miserable and being on medications and organs breaking down. That's not normal. And so the chiropractic story is, the longer people get adjusted, the healthier they are. The more frequently they get adjusted, especially initially, the quicker they recover. And chiropractic doesn't cure every condition, but there is not a single condition that doesn't require proper nerve supply. And often what we find out is that is the missing piece that people haven't been looking at.
I mean, it's so good.
It is good.
That's so good. That's exactly.
Not because I said it, but because it's true.
Yes.
It's good because it's true. And I still am amazed by it all the time. That leads us to another one. And one of my other favorite ones is chiropractors don't believe in medication. And here's what's crazy. I'm going to leave here, and wherever I go, I could turn that way. I'm going to run into a Walgreens within a half a mile.
Yeah.
I could turn that way. I'm going to run into a Walgreens within a half a mile.
Yep.
I can take this secret little road back here that cuts next to I-75, and I can drive that way, and within about a mile and a half, I'm going to bump into a Walgreens.
It is kind of a secret little road.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one.
So that being said, and there's a Meijer right here that has a Walgreens. There's a Kroger that has a pharmacy. There's a Kroger down the road that has a pharmacy. Like, there's a Walmart that way that has a pharmacy. To say we don't believe in drugs, like, we know they exist.
Yeah.
We believe that they're there. We believe that
it's not like the Loch Ness Monster.
No.
Like,
it's like a Yeti.
Yeah, it's not like a Yeti in the woods. Like, it's there.
Although I think the Yeti might be real too. I don't know. But yeah, the verdict's still out on the Yeti.
Oh my gosh.
But that's so funny. We go up to Paradise, Michigan with my kids. I take them to this place called Dad's Camp, and on the way up there, people have all these cutouts of Yetis, and they're placed in their yard, but very like inconspicuously. So as you're driving by, you're like, "What is that thing?"
What is that thing?
And you think you saw a Yeti on your way up there. So
that's so good.
Yeah. So when it comes to drugs, like true story, my son broke his arm. He was given something for pain. It was in needle form, and I can't remember what it was. They had to like reset his arm, which is a fancy way of saying, hey, we're going to break it back the other way a little bit.
Yeah.
So he had a needle in his arm. I'm trying to think. I had an eye problem years ago. I had an issue with something going on with my eye, and it got really inflamed. And so I think I took some drops. They were like steroid drops for a very short period of time, and wanted to get off those. So to say we don't believe in drugs is not the case. The case is that I hope that we can live our lifestyle in such a way that my wife and I and our children rarely or never need them.
Right.
That's the goal. And I think, when I ask people, and again, this is one that used to be big 10 years ago. Chiropractors don't believe in drugs. And people would be like, oh, yeah, I've heard that. Like, yeah, they're crazy. Nowadays, I'm like, I rephrase the question. I just say, if your goal is to end up with more drugs and more surgery, raise your hand. And nobody raises their hand. So it's just kind of reframing that question of like, do chiropractors believe in drugs? Well, let me ask you a question. Is your goal to end up on lots more medication or have lots more surgery? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, good. So do you want a doctor working with you who has similar goals to that?
Right.
Yes.
Right,
okay.
right.
That's me. That's what we do.
That's what we do. Right. And I think that's like that's a big health goal for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's some moments where maybe that's never even crossed your mind before, right? Where it's like when I'm looking towards, you know, and in my 20s and 30s, I probably really didn't think about the end of my life so much, except for the times that we really forced ourselves to, because we talk about that. We talk about the things that we're doing right now that are building health, you know, and what they're going to do in the future in the long term. But also really looking at like just this idea of if you're championing the cause of all the pharmaceutical industry and the drugs and the things like that, are your personal health goals saying, I would like to have more drugs? Like, does that feel like something that's going to build health in your life? And if your answer to that is yes, then
no, the answer is no, because we have patients who work in pharmacies. Right. We have patients who sell drugs to doctors, and they all are like, dude, I wouldn't take this stuff I sell. We have people who sell spinal surgery equipment, screws and bolts and, you know, bars and whatever they use now. And they're like, I'm here at the chiropractor because I never want to end up under spinal surgery. You know, we have doctors that come in and they say, this is awesome what you do. Like, this setup is really cool. Like, people are here, they're getting healthy. They like being here. They're like, this is what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing, and, you know, this is just go to a doctor. What'll happen? You'll wait for a few minutes. They'll call you back. You'll stand on a scale, and they'll take your height, and a nurse will probably do that. They might take your temperature and your blood pressure. The height and weight, they won't talk about it at all.
Right.
Like, they'll never talk about it, typically. They might bring up your blood pressure. The doctor's going to ask you how you feel, and you're going to tell him what's wrong, and then he's going to write a prescription. And that's pretty much how it goes. And they realize that, and the reason is because it's called a standard of care, and they have to do what has been essentially designed by the insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies, and really they've become just kind of, they're just a cog in the wheel, and they come into an office like this. And this is one of the things about chiropractic. Chiropractic has not been largely affected by VC money yet. Mm-hmm. That most chiropractic offices are either A, independently owned, or it's a large amount of offices owned by 1 or 2 or 10 chiropractors. Right. That there isn't a lot of venture capitalist money in chiropractic. Right now, the VC money in medicine, it's buying up everything. There aren't private practices left, very few of them. And that's why you see like, oh, Dr. Joe retired. Oh, they renamed it TriHealth, right, or whatever. Right. Because they're going around, they're just buying up patients basically. Right. And what's their goal with that is, we're going to establish better protocols. Dr. Joe is very personable. We're going to get your patient times down to 5 minutes each. Dr. Joe is this. We're going to do this. You have to prescribe 2.5 drugs on average per person that walks in the door. They're going to have metrics because that's what VCs tend to do to things. And chiropractic just hasn't gone that route. So I think we got time for one more.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick one.
Yeah.
How about chiropractors? I just had one a second ago that I really liked. How about this one? And we'll touch on this again. But chiropractors, once you go, you have to go for the rest of your life. And I'm here to tell you it's not true. It's not true. You should have always been going, first of all. Yeah. And you don't have to go for the rest of your life. You get to. Mm-hmm. That would be the equivalent of saying, once my dad taught me how to change the oil in my car, now I gotta change the oil in my car for the rest of my life. Just because you weren't doing it doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing it. Yeah. And once you value something, you learn the true value of it. Mm-hmm. So we'll start off with that one again. It'll be part 2. We're going to keep going through things. People have some misconceptions about chiropractic. So we just appreciate you guys being with us. And if these things are things that you've thought or things that family members have thought, and you go, wow, this is enlightening, maybe I should give this a try. I had 2 patients this week come in that said, I've never been to a chiropractor. I've always thought I should go. I've had these things going on, and finally I was like, what's holding me back? That's a great question. They came in, they're like, this is nothing like what I expected. This is awesome. And yeah, I'm ready. This is what I want to do. If that's you, go to alignhealthcenter.com, and on that page, you'll see a link that says schedule an appointment. That's our real schedule. So you can schedule an appointment right there. If you're looking for a chiropractor and you're not in the Westchester, Mason, Liberty Township area, Butler, Warren County, area in Ohio, shoot us an email. Go to info@alignhealthcenter.com. Shoot us an email. We'll help you find a chiropractor who does really great corrective chiropractic care in your area.